Welcome back, GRD 121 to part 3 of our ps2 slideshow images. We're working on our photo editing of a number of photos that are actually in layers in a Photoshop image that were actually part of a slideshow that I did a couple years ago, but I like them because they all have problems that we're trying to work on here. And we did 3 of them, and we're going to finish up the final 3. This one that is here is ISC pick, and you can see the problem already. There's a lot of light coming in the windows, and everybody's in shadow. So we just have to fix the shadow, and we have a tool for that called Shadows Highlights. So I'm going to make sure that I'm targeted on this layer. I have it visible, and I'll go to Image Adjustments, and I'll go to Shadows Highlights, and right off the bat, it does a really good job. Even at 50 right here, it does a nice job. Now, I haven't used these things a whole lot. I'm not sure what tone would do. Actually, increasing tone a little bit helps a little bit, as long as it doesn't make these brighter. That was at like 25 or something. Let me cancel out of here. I'll just look at that again. So again, on here, I'll go to Image, Adjustments, Shadows, Highlights, and tone here. If you increase tone a little bit, it seems to almost help it a little bit more too. Not too much, but just a little bit overall. I kind of like that. Radius, let's see how that looks. See, I haven't used too much of these other things. Actually, radius seems to help a little bit too. That actually seems to do a nice job. So just kind of tweaking this a little bit. Looks pretty good. And, you know, there's the before and after. Looks a hell of a lot better. So I'll hit OK, and I don't think I have any issues with like yellowness, so I'm not going to do anything with photo filter. I'll check levels just to check it out. I'll go to Image Adjustments, Levels, and there's probably not much I have to do here. I don't want to brighten anything because it's just going to brighten all that stuff there. You could try a little bit, but it's just going to bleach out things more, so I'm not going to do much. But if you just need a little bit, that's where midtones might help just a little bit from where it was at. Where it was at like 1 in the middle, just tweaking it a little bit might be good. And that's about it. I shouldn't have to do anything else. And right away, I'll do the Unsharp Mask. Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. And again, I'll put this at like 1 or close to 1. 0.8. Sounds good. Take this down to around 40 to 50. Again, I'm even going less than I was saying originally because it seems like the lower resolution images, this is a little more powerful. So you have to be careful. So even some of this can be taken down a little bit, maybe even 0.5 and around 40. So that looks okay. And I'll hit OK. And then if you went back to where it started, this is where it started. This is what it looks like now. Looks a lot better. I have overdone it a little bit, but I think it looks a lot better, especially if it's in a slideshow and you wanted to see everybody. It looks pretty natural light compared to the way it started. Look at that. That before, after. Before, after. Looks a lot better. And that's what we want. All right, so turn off this, turn on the chest one, and make sure you target the chest one. Now this one's a little more challenging, so this will take the longest. And actually, maybe I'll keep that for last. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do Drew Barrymore and make sure I make her visible and make sure I target her layer. So I'm actually going to do her next. And we've done this in other classes, so this is pretty easy. And I just go and take the polygonal lasso. I could even use the same lasso tool with the straight line and just kind of click around here. And I could do this really quick and go around and select her teeth. And notice I zoomed in before I did that. You don't want to be too far away to do this. And you don't have to worry about, we don't have to make Bezier curves or anything. Little straight lines are fine. And again, just click on where you started. And there it is. So that's a nice selection of the teeth. And once you have those teeth selected, and make sure you're targeted the layer, and just go to Image, Adjustments. And so I'm going to skip shadows and go right to Photo Filter. And obviously I don't want it more yellow. I want it more blue. And I'll hit OK. And I don't want them that blue. I'll take it all the way down and then bring it up just to take the yellow tint off. Now, probably 10 is probably good. Now, 15 might be a little on the bluer side, and you might find somewhere like 13 might be okay. Like, you don't want it too bluer because, people's teeth are kind of a natural kind of bone-ish color, so they're not really bluish. So somewhere around 12, 13 might be nice, and I'll hit OK. And one more thing I'll do is I'll go to Image, Adjustments, Levels, And you can see there's no darks here, so I'm going to lighten it just a little so I don't lose any detail. Now, if I go too much, it's going to bleach out. So just a little bit, and I can click on and off just to see that I have just enough to make it look a little brighter. Maybe 244 at the most. And I could even tweak the shadows a little and make them darker. Just to give a little more pop to the dark in the shadows might look nice too. Just a little, not like that. Look at that. I don't want that. But just a little bit. Just to give a little more kind of contrast a little bit. And I think that looks pretty good. And I'll hit OK. And then I'll do select, deselect, because I don't want to select it anymore. And if I want to sharpen the whole image, I can. I could still stay on this whole layer and go filter, sharpen, Unsharp Mask. And again, that's not what you want. You don't want it sharpened that much, so make sure you take this down to, maybe 0.5. Make sure you take this down to somewhere in the 40s. Look at the before and after. It just gives a little bit of pop to it when you do the before and after, and that's probably good, and I'll hit OK. And now we only have one more to go. I'll turn off that one, and I'll put on the chest one, and I'll make sure I target the chest layer. Okay, so on this one, some of the issues that we're going to deal with here, we need to lighten some of the shadows over here, but this almost needs to be darkened a little bit. Needs almost a little more contrast because it's getting a lot of bright light on there. Now, I don't know how much we can do. And over here, we're going to try to desaturate this a little bit. So we'll kind of take this little parts at a time. So what I'm going to try to do is use the quick selection tool, which is under here. There's object selection, there's quick selection, and I'll see if this works like the way it's worked in Photoshop. Now, it's really hard to see. The lines are really fine on here. In Photoshop, they're a little more definite, but here they're really fine. And you almost have like this circular thing. I don't know if you could see that. And I'll just zoom in a little bit more, and I'll hold my space bar and move over so I see kind of the edge of the image here. And there's that circular thing. I can see it right here if I go in this area here. And to make it bigger, you could use your right bracket where the curly braces are and the square brackets next to the letter P on your keyboard. If you use the right side one, it'll make the brush bigger and it'll make it smaller. Now, it's not really a brush, it's a selection tool, but if you kind of click in here, and it should kind of highlight. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just kind of click on him and get as much as him. Everything that's connected here should connect. So I'm just going to click here, and you can see it gets all that area, and it gets his head. Now, I actually don't want his head. So I think if I hit this minus sign, I think I could brush in the areas that I don't want. And you can see it almost took it down right there. And I think I could go down a little bit. And I think that's pretty much what I want, to be honest. That doesn't look too bad. You can see what it's highlighting there. I just want to do shadows highlights on that part. And that's all I want. So I'm going to go Image, Adjustments, Shadows, Highlights. And you can see it's bringing a lot of detail in his coat. You didn't even see all that texture is there. But I'm not going to do that much. I'll lower it a little bit so it looks a little more natural. You know, I don't want it that much, but I just want to bring out, take it all the way down and then kind of bring it up a little bit. That looks a little bit more natural as far as his coat. I still want to make sure there's a kind of a dark and light thing. So I'll go somewhere around there. Somewhere around 40 probably looks okay. So I'll hit OK, and that looks okay. And then I'll do Command D and deselect. So that looks better. We got some detail in there. I think that looks good, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to try to do the same thing with this guy over here and kind of desaturate his red shirt. So I'm going to zoom into his red shirt a little bit, and I'll see if I could select just what the red is on here, and I'll make my brush a little bit smaller before I select and see if I can. And again, it's really hard to see in here in Photopea. And there it's going, it's getting everything red actually. You can see a little dotted line around there. And I'm just going to desaturate a little bit. So I'll just go Image, Adjustments. Now we didn't use this one yet. And I'll go to Hue Saturation. And I'll move this out of the way, or maybe over here is okay. And I just want to desaturate it. Just take the saturation down. Just so the red isn't so electric. So I'll just take it down a little bit. Not all the way. I don't want to make them black and white. But I just want to take the saturation down. Just somewhere in between, -42, something like that. And I'll do before and after, and it looks a little better. It just takes the edge off of that because coat's really bright. Now, I don't want to make his skin tone look too bad, so I could tweak it a little bit more. Before, after, before, after. I think it looks better, so I'll hit OK. And then I'll do Command D or Control D if you're on Windows. And that looks better. And I'll still see if I can maybe add a little more contrast to his head. I don't know how this is going to work here. And I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try the, I know this one I always find kind of confusing, but I'll try this magnetic lasso, and I'll try to draw around his head. I'll just see how this goes. I'm just kind of going around here. I'm just kind of laying my mouse down and just kind of going around his face. And it kind of lays little things on there. And this might be a case where this might work okay. And I'll just click on where I ended up. So now it's selected his head. That seemed to work out okay. The magnetic lasso. And now what I'll do is I'll just go to Image Adjustments, Levels. And I'm just going to darken the shadows a little bit, like that. Now normally I've been lightening, but since he's in front of the window, I want to take that kind of glare that's kind of coming on him and just darken it just a little bit. Just something like that. Now I know it's kind of messing up his collar a little bit there. And actually, if it is, I'm going to hit Cancel. I'll see if I could take my quick selection tool again and put on the minus thing and make it kind of smaller. And seeing if I can zoom in here and kind of, there we go. That looks perfect, unless it added more to it. But let me see what this looks like. Image Adjustments, Levels. Let me just darken this up a little bit. Actually, that looks pretty good. It looks like it might be missing his nose, but that's okay. But there's before, after. I think that looks better. I'm just trying to take that little kind of glare off his head and make him look a little more natural. So I'll hit OK. And I'll do Command D. I don't think his nose will look too bad like that, because there's still a lot of sunlight coming in. That looks a little more natural. And if I need to do anything to the whole image, I can now, since I don't have anything selected, I could go Image Adjustments. I'll see what Shadows Highlights looks like on the whole image, and I'm going to turn it all the way down and just bring it up a little bit. Just brighten it a little bit. The whole image as a whole. Now again, not as much, but maybe something like 15 or so. And again, I don't want to bring too much into here, but that looks a little bit better, I think, than it was. It's bringing a little bit back. And then I'm going to try levels. I know we're just kind of experimenting here. I'll try levels. Now, I don't want to bring more because that'll bring a lot more light in, but I might want to just tweak the midtones a little bit, slightly, just to make the whole area look a little brighter. Because it is very great. A lot of the midtones are down here, so I think that looks a lot better. And you could experiment yourself and see what you think. I'll hit OK, but if I go back here and kind of look at where I started, I think it looks a lot better. And I don't want to go back too far, because sometimes going back and forth with history, and then if you hit an eyeball here and make a layer, I've had it wipe out things. So be very careful about going back and forth in history. So that looks okay. Matter of fact, I'm going to go File, Save, just save what I have. And I think this looks a lot better. And I'll even do the sharpening. I'll go Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. Yeah, not that much, but take it close to the 40s. Take this down to around 1 or so, a little less. And I think that looks okay. So now, and I already did the Drew Barrymore. So everything we've done here, we've gone back and edited all these. So I'll put on Kitchen. I'll put on Holding Two Sketches. I'll put on Blue Painting. I'll put these all on. Now they're all obviously layers on top of each other. And I could turn off background, although I don't know if that's going to eliminate it from being generated. Now, I'll save one more time because everything's saved. And if you're not working on Google Drive, this would be a time to download it, the PSD file. But what I'm going to do next, and this is pretty cool, is all these images I'm going to want to save here as JPEGs. And then you can upload them in a folder, and I'll show you how to do that. You're going to go File, Export Layers. And it says 0 exportable layers. It says only layers folders whose name starts with E. I guess you could put an E on there and make them exportable. But what I'm going to do is just uncheck that, and I'll just let them all go. Now sometimes it won't do ones that are turned off, but it seems to be doing that. And it says trim transparent part, which is great because it's going to trim the transparent parts on this layer here, the vertical picture. For format, we're going to make these JPEGs, and quality's at 70 for now, and that should be okay. I could take it up to 80. Sometimes I'll take it up to 80, and that should be okay. And it'll generate all these, and what it does is it puts them in a folder and it zips it. So I'm going to export layers, and it has size, so I want it all 100%. I don't want it any bigger. Export this, and there it is, assets.zip. Now, what are you going to do with that? Well, you're going to go back to here to My Warren, and obviously you have to log in again, and go to coursework, and go back to here. Now, I don't have an upload portion of this, but what you can do is just go to Add Comment, and remember when you want to upload a file, you just go to this one that says Insert File, just say Insert File, and then go to Upload, and go to Downloads, because that's where your assets got downloaded to. There it is, Assets, and just click on it, and hit Open, and hit Insert, because it will let you upload a zip file. So there it is. You don't have to change this target because it's not going to go to a new window anyway. If it's a zip file, it'll just download it. So you shouldn't have to do anything there. That's all you should need. And just hit save. And I should be able to look at those images. I'm not going to look at your Photoshop file right now. I want to look at your finished products of your images. And we'll find a better way to share our Photoshop file, because we can do that through Photopea. You could do it through Google Drive. But right now, if you send me all your images, that's all I need. So that should be fine. And if you go back here, you can X out of here, and everything is saved. Save whatever you have. I'll just save this one more time in my Google Drive. And if you want to share your Google Drive file with you, I don't know if everybody's using Google Drive, but if you want to share your file, you could close this up. You could go into your drive. Now here it's just last opened. I'll refresh this. And this is the last version of it. And if you want to share this, you could always just right click and do share. And change this to, it says restricted. So change this to anyone with link. And that way you can just copy link. And then go back here and add a second comment. And do it as a link. Click on the link. Paste it here. Choose new window. Hit OK. And hit save. That way you have this asset zip, all your individual images, and this way I can still look at your Photoshop file that's in Photopea. And if you have a problem with this, we'll deal with that, but as long as we have one. But if you get a chance to do both, do both. That way I can look at your file that you did in Photopea, and I could also see your finished JPEGs that are in here. And if you have any problem with unzipping things and looking at things in a zip folder, I'll show you how to do that too. But for now, you're good. So that's the end of part 3 of our ps2 slideshow images exercise.